My ex-girlfriend announced it was finished. Her new boyfriend was whisking her away to Paris. I responded, "Have a great trip." She had no idea her new guy was my latest intern. I held off until they were on the plane, then messaged my intern, "You're out of a job," revoked his company credit card, and abandoned them both in Paris. My girlfriend of 2 years, Madison, ended things with me last week. She chose our go-to restaurant for it, which was quite audacious. It forced me to remain seated opposite her, keeping a composed face as she methodically tore apart our shared existence, all while the server persistently refilled my water. She delivered the standard breakup lines. She claimed we were heading in separate directions, that she craved more excitement and drive in her world. Then she landed the final punch, the detail she was obviously thrilled to share. She had encountered someone new, a vibrant, extraordinary guy who was truly advancing. "He's flying me to Paris for 7 days, Alex," she said, her gaze sparkling with a harsh sort of victory. "Top-tier seats, departing Friday." She aimed to wound me. She hoped I'd envision her being swept off on a dreamy getaway in Europe by her superior replacement. She wanted me to feel diminished, insufficient, and discarded. None of that hit me. Instead, a peculiar tranquility settled in, similar to what I experienced before sealing a big business agreement. Because while she described her new partner, it dawned on me that I recognized him perfectly. His name is Leo, and he's my most recent intern. Let me give some background as it's crucial. I hold the position of vice president at a major global tech corporation. Roughly 3 months back, our firm onboarded a group of top-notch MBA interns from premier institutions. Leo stood out as the top performer, intelligent, charming, and excessively driven. He was placed on my team directly. I recognized his talent but also his conceit. He was a high-stakes player, someone who took chances believing he was invincible. Due to the sensitive initiatives my department manages, I was permitted to issue Leo a corporate American Express card. This isn't typical for interns, but he was on an accelerated path. The card was meant for sanctioned costs tied to a forthcoming assignment that might involve overseas trips and client sessions in Europe. It featured a substantial spending cap, and as his immediate supervisor and the approving VP, I maintained complete control over his transactions. I was extending him significant leeway, a trial to assess his maturity. So when Madison, with her moderate income, began mentioning premium flights to Paris, a light bulb went off in my mind. I realized Leo lacked the private resources for such extravagance. There was only one method he could afford it. He was misusing the freedom I provided to sabotage himself. I kept up the act. I heard Madison out attentively. I pretended to be slightly devastated and shocked. I even inquired softly, "What time is your flight on Friday?" She shared the carrier and flight details, keen to deepen the pain. 7 p.m. nonstop to Charles de Gaulle, she stated with a satisfied grin. That night, as she gathered her belongings at our place to depart, I was in my study. I accessed the firm's expense management system. And sure enough, it was all there, documented clearly. A live record of Leo's astonishing folly. Transaction 1, 2 premium round-trip seats on Air France. Amount, $14,500. Transaction 2, 7 nights prepaid at a luxury hotel on the Champs-Élysées. Amount, $8,200. Transaction 3, a cash withdrawal from an airport machine. Amount, $1,000. He treated the business card like his own endless fund. It was bold, imprudent, and a move that would destroy his professional future. He wagered on concealing these costs or assuming I'd overlook them. He placed a terribly misguided bet. Once Madison had everything ready and stood by the entrance with her bags, she cast one final, condescending glance. "Well, Alex," she remarked, "I'm heading out to begin my fresh chapter. My new partner is escorting me to Paris." I met her gaze steadily, my face impassive. "Have a wonderful journey," I replied. Over the following couple of days, I stayed inactive. I allowed them to proceed as planned. I observed charges for lounge entry and pricey snacks appear in the system. Then, on Friday night, I checked the flight monitoring site. I tracked their status from gate to loading to departure. I paused until the aircraft symbol indicated they were securely above the Atlantic, far beyond turning back. I grabbed my device. I had a pre-written text for Leo. I had another contact prepared to reach. It was the moment to address my organization's risks and my private matters with utmost effectiveness. Update 1: the instant the tracker displayed their jet over the sea, I initiated my strategy. It was a straightforward 2-phase operation, carried out with exacting accuracy from my cozy lounge. Phase 1 involved a text. I accessed the prepared note to Leo. It was concise and entirely clear. I composed, "Leo, this is to notify you that your position with the organization is ended, starting now, due to severe violations and deceptive use of firm assets. Your business credit card is revoked. Avoid reaching out to me or any colleague. An official document outlining your exit package, which is none, and a repayment request will arrive at your residence. I pressed send. The note went through right away. Naturally, he wouldn't view it for another 6 hours, perhaps over French shores. Phase 2 was a call. I contacted the round-the-clock service for our firm's card management. A drowsy representative picked up. I verified my identity with my title and executive code. I must report fraudulent activity on a card and deactivate it at once, I stated. I supplied Leo's card details. As the overseeing vice president, I possessed total power for this. I informed the rep that the staff member was dismissed and all latest transactions, like the flight bookings and accommodation, should be marked as invalid and pursued for refunds. The rep entered data briefly. All right, Mr. Sterling, he confirmed. The card is now inactive. All ongoing charges are halted. We'll launch a fraud review from here. Superb, I responded. Appreciate your promptness. And that concluded it. In mere minutes, I had dismissed my errant intern and eliminated his monetary support. I pictured the chain of occurrences upon landing in Paris. They'd be thrilled, buzzed from first-class drinks. They'd cab to their opulent 5-star spot. They'd approach reception, and the courteous staff would check their booking, type away, then share the unfortunate update with a mild grimace. Apologies, sir, but the payment method for this stay has been rejected. The booking is invalid. From that point, their ideal escape would unravel into chaos. All their arrangements would vanish. The company card in Leo's possession was now worthless. His own finances, as I knew from his entry-level pay, couldn't cover even a budget night in Paris, much less 2 urgent economy returns. They were marooned. As anticipated, roughly 8 hours on, my phone buzzed. It was an unfamiliar number, but with a French prefix. I sent it to voicemail. Soon after, it rang once more, dismissed. Then Madison's texts flooded in. Alex, what have you done? The hotel refuses entry. Leo's card is denied everywhere. He claims you shut it down. He received a firing notice. Is this some prank? Alex, it's not amusing. We're penniless. We're trapped. You must resolve this. You're obligated to. I scanned the messages, a chill of fairness enveloping me. Obligated? I was under no such duty. After numerous desperate pleas, I chose to offer one last response. I crafted a lone, straightforward line. This appears to be an issue solely between you and your vibrant, driven partner. As I mentioned, have a great trip, or rather, your getaway. I dispatched it. Then I restricted her contact. I cut her off from all online profiles. I wiped her from my virtual world as thoroughly as I'd dismantled her travel itinerary. Not long after, some of her acquaintances began messaging me, obviously given a frantic, biased account. What you've inflicted on Madison is harsh, one typed. It's a huge mix-up. You should assist them. I ignored them. I simply blocked those two. This wasn't a confusion. It was fallout. Madison had linked herself to a guy who attempted to construct a future on deceit and overconfidence. I merely highlighted it to him and her in the clearest, irrefutable manner. They were in a premier destination with a rock-bottom wallet, compelled to unravel the chaos they'd brewed. Update 2. My initial task at work on Monday was to officialize the matter. I conferred with our HR director and my superior, the senior VP. I presented the details objectively, showing them the printouts from the expense system. I outlined the sequence of expenditures, the upscale tickets, the high-end lodging, all for private purposes. I ended Leo's role for major infractions on Friday night once the improper use was verified. I clarified. I also deactivated his card to stop more unsanctioned outlays and shield the company from extra risks. They looked serious but entirely backed me. My superior patted my back. Solid decision, Alex, he noted. You responded firmly to safeguard our resources. This young man was a ticking bomb. Better to discover early than later when he's managing key client info. HR managed the formal documents. Leo was officially barred from future roles at our firm or affiliates. My quick response was recorded in my records not as vengeance but as exemplary leadership vigilance. Career-wise, I emerged even stronger. Naturally, I was deeply intrigued about how Madison and Leo extracted themselves from their French ordeal. The details surfaced a week later, through a coworker linked to one of Madison's associates. Word of mouth is potent. The tale was one of total, raw embarrassment. After failing to contact me, Madison resorted to emotional, pleading calls to her folks. She admitted her lavish Paris trip with her new beau had collapsed because he'd financed it with a pilfered card. Her parents, following what must have been a monumental scolding, grudgingly sent funds. Not for a lavish stay, but sufficient for 2 hasty one-way flights in the cheapest spots, probably with a lengthy stop in Iceland. I envisioned that return journey was tense and profoundly awkward. Back home, Madison, now destitute and utterly shamed, initiated a frantic counteroffensive. Unable to hit me at work, she targeted my character. She circulated nasty gossip to all ears. She labeled me a possessive, vindictive beast. She alleged I'd been psychologically harmful for ages, and that I'd orchestrated Leo's dismissal purely from bitterness since I couldn't accept her choosing a superior option. She also attempted a monetary strike. She forwarded a lengthy, formal-sounding email, evidently penned by another, insisting I relinquish all presents she'd offered during our 2 years. She asserted rights to some of my holdings due to her emotional input and additions to our joint routine. The inventory of her alleged items encompassed costly furnishings, artwork, and gadgets I'd acquired well prior to her residency. This was novice level. I didn't bother replying. I just passed it to my lawyer. My attorney composed a brief, pointed, and fierce halt and refrain notice. It declared unequivocally that I was liable for zilch. It emphasized her assertions on my belongings were groundless and deceptive. It attached proofs of purchase for the primary pieces she cited, confirming my exclusive possession. The notice wrapped with a stark caution. It mentioned her aware involvement in Leo's scheme to cheat my firm via the excursion. It observed that although my organization was chasing Leo, they had thus far opted not to involve her. The letter firmly suggested that continued interaction, bother, or slanderous remarks toward me might prompt me to advise my firm's attorneys to revisit her role as a bystander and deem her an accomplice. It was a decisive victory. Intimidating her alone would yield little. But looming with the complete judicial force of a multibillion enterprise, that was a peril she couldn't ignore. The whispers ceased. The messages halted. Only quiet remained. Final update. 4 months have passed since the Paris episode. The ripples have calmed, and the ultimate repercussions of Madison and Leo's brief escapade are now crystal clear. Their narrative lacked a joyful conclusion. First, Leo. His career isn't merely paused. It's a devastated ruin. My firm's legal team, as committed, issued him an official repayment demand for every cent he wrongly spent on the card. The sum exceeded $24,000. They allowed 30 days for a settlement arrangement before advancing to litigation. Additionally, my company's HR, following protocol for integrity breaches, dispatched a formal note to his school's dean. The document described his dismissal reasons, encompassing fund abuse and agreement violation. An MBA from an elite program relies on connections and standing. That base is now tainted. He's excluded from our field. No credible employer will take on someone dismissed for financial wrongdoing. His promising path ended prematurely. Now Madison. Her existence post her abbreviated Paris stint has been a gradual, agonizing downfall. The bond with Leo, founded purely on his showy vows and my firm's cash, dissolved upon their arrival stateside. He was jobless, shamed, and burdened with huge debt. He no longer embodied the bold leader she'd abandoned me for. He became a burden. They parted ways in under a week. Madison landed in a dire spot. She was financially drained, having depleted her reserves on the mortifying return. She'd been openly jilted by the man she'd openly ditched me for, and she was basically without a home, since her name wasn't on my rental agreement. From the same trustworthy network, I learned she had to relocate to her parents' place. In her late 20s, bunking in her old room, her lofty Paris fantasy morphed into a suburban disaster. I got one last email from her around a month back, from a fresh account. It was a pitiful, meandering note. It swung between accusing me of wrecking her world and loosely expressing regret for the breakup. It was the typical woe is me rant of someone dodging accountability for her actions. I perused it, experienced zero emotion, then erased it and blocked the sender. Regarding myself, things are excellent. My role at the firm is more secure than before. I'm admired for leading with resolve and defending the organization's welfare. My home is serene. I've prioritized my career, exercise routine, and rebuilding ties with pals I'd overlooked during my time with Madison. I don't view my actions as vengeance, not emotionally. I treated it as a threat mitigation issue. I faced a staffer who posed a danger and a companion who aided his imprudence. I executed the most streamlined and rational measures to eliminate the hazard to my enterprise and my personal sphere. That their individual worlds crumbled afterward was merely an expected outcome of their poor judgments. They risked it all, staking my firm's funds and my confidence. And they failed dramatically.